Well, you may not have seen it on Monday night, and if you didn't miss much, but the TVNZ Re-News Young Voters Debate was held, and it featured Labour's Arena Williams, Nationals' Erica Stanford, ACT's Brooke Van Velden, Te Pāti Māori's Hana Rafferty Maapi Clark, New Zealand First's Lee Donoghue, who apparently is a ex-Shortland Street actor, and Green's Chloe Schwarbeck, who, according to a recent poll, may have a run for her money on in the Auckland seat. Apparently the national candidate is polling just behind her, and given that many of Chloe's supporters probably just turned up to vote yes in the cannabis referendum last time, they may not be so motivated to turn up this time, so that's definitely a seat to watch. But let's check out the debate, and one question in particular. So one of the questions which took up quite a bit of the TVNZ Young Voters debate earlier this week, Monday night, was on the transgender issue, which is no surprise given that it is a debate sponsored by the state-funded TVNZ Re channel. That's right, Re, which is a dodgy and at times grubby youth news service that we've previously shown on McBLOG. Look, here's a bit of their promo featuring transgender, prostitution, and Chanel Lau talking about top and bottom.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
A girl.
I know that they get very excited to see, whakawhāwhinis that are much older than them. It inspires them. That's how I felt when I was young.
There's a message that says, are you a top or a bottom? And I replied, a burden.
People doing sex work, we're not damaged, we're not broken, something isn't wrong with us.
Okay, so that gives you a bit of an idea of what Re is like and the audience that would be attracted. So back to the debate. And here was a key question, and it was to New Zealand First, the New Zealand First representative. And they're the target because Winston Peters has dared to suggest that gender ideology is harmful for children, that men should stay out of women's sports, and that toilets should be based on biological sex, as they have been for generations. In other words, biology matters. So here's the loaded question, including research from organisations you've never heard of, and that's because they're activist groups pushing an agenda, and their research is advocacy research. In other words, they determine what they want the outcome to be and then do the research to prove that outcome. No random group, no control group. And of course, there's the statement in the question that those with gender dysphoria have mental health issues. But that's not the reason for the dysphoria, apparently. There's no mention of the at-risk sexual activity and drug use that sadly is disproportionately high in this group also. And they quote the Disinformation Project, who call any opposition to gender ideology as genocide. Obviously, they weren't at the Posey Parker rally where we saw the real violence. No, it's all because of Winston Peters and his rhetoric. So it's not really a question, as you will see. It's a lecture aimed at you.
This year, the Disinformation Project reported a surge in online hate towards rainbow communities that was so extreme, it was described as genocidal. Most of it has been directed at the trans community, while a lot of the political conversation has been focused on bathrooms. Lee, your party leader, Winston Peters, wants a new law banning anyone from accessing a public bathroom or changing room designed for the opposite sex use. According to the Williams Institute, trans people are 4 times more likely than cisgender people to be victims of violent crime, and trans and non-binary teenagers face a higher risk of sexual assault in schools that prevent them from using bathrooms consistent with their gender identity, according to another study. So where is your evidence that this is a safety issue?
Well, there is evidence of, girls. I mean, we've got Lorraine Moller, one of the great Olympians of New Zealand, who's come out and endorsed New Zealand First because of our stance on speaking up for women, standing up for women's rights, women's spaces. So what's happening is, and I didn't know this until I heard Lorraine tell me this, she said she's championed her whole life to get women into sports. Now you've got biological men participating in female sports, blowing them away in their changing spaces. And what it's doing is it's discouraging women from actually participating now into sports.
Though, on the topic of public bathrooms,
yes,
where is your evidence?
There's studies all over. We have people basically saying to us, hey, I was assaulted in a bathroom by a biological male. This is wrong. And, you know, you have biological men getting changed in women's spaces, and it's scaring women.
So you have anecdotal evidence, but you don't have...
I don't have the statistics in front of you right now, but it's a true thing. It's a real thing. We're not on another planet. There are a lot of people concerned with this, not just in New Zealand, all over the world. And we want to stand up for women. We want to stand up for women's spaces. We want to make sure everyone's safe.
With your bathroom policy, particularly at schools, how are you going to enforce it? Are you going to get teachers to, what, do genital checks at the door, or...?
What a stupid question. No, I think...
Then
how? That's ridiculous. And, you know, making a mockery out of this and women's spaces is just uncalled for. And the pendulum's gone so far to the radical left, you think this is normal. This is not normal. All we're doing is sticking up for women.
If you want a new law, how are you going to enforce it? In schools?
Look, bathrooms are already unisex, male and female, right? We're just going to say, hey, we're not going to accept this because there are people on the outliers that aren't just, you know, really nice people. They do this for a reason.
Okay, I mean, it's an easy answer. Base it on their biological sex, their medical record of what they were when they were born, whether they have a him or a him. You know what I'm talking about. But then, of course, Chloe is brought in, Green MP Chloe Schwarbrick is brought in to express righteous indignation and to use the tactic of the left to shut down the debate. You'll hear it. Mate, it's your rhetoric. No, it's not the confusing and harmful messages to young children or the irreversible and harmful puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. It's not the castration and mutilation of healthy body parts. Nope, nothing wrong with that. It's just the rhetoric, expressing concern about the welfare of vulnerable and impressionable children. That's the real problem, according to Chloe.
All right, Chloe, what's your response to that?
If you want to talk about the actual stats and the actual evidence and the actual data, what we know full well is that our trans and non-binary and gender minority whānau are disproportionately represented in mental ill health, addiction and suicidal statistics.
Yes, and we don't want to encourage.
And mate, it's driven by rhetoric from the likes of your party.
No, it's not.
And I expect...
It's driven by rhetoric by your party, which is encouraging it in young children. That's why we want to remove it from schools.
Okay,
more kids now are transgendering or transitioning than ever before.
And the gays came out the closet only like 40-odd years ago or something? Just take a second.
There's actually a lot of lesbians and a lot of gays that are actually against...
Are you talking on behalf of the women and the lesbos now? Because let me have a moment, please.
No.
All right.
I was invited to talk at a speaker
event. No, I was just invited to
When everybody talks at once, it feels too hectic. So, Chloe, if you can finish your point, and then I know, Hannah, that you had your hand up, so we'll go to you after. Chloe.
Well, speaking on behalf of the woke lesbos, what I do have to say is that ultimately, well, no, I did.
Yes, you did.
Because yes, exactly, and the rhetoric and the fear-mongering behind the likes of what you and your party are putting forward are harming people in our communities because it is not evidence-based. And ultimately, I think that there is a responsibility for political leaders to turn down the temperature on this and to take responsibility for the consequences of their rhetoric, which are hurting people in our communities.
Little kids don't need to be exposed.
Pay attention to the actual evidence here. Listen to the academics.
I'm going to smash the buzzer. If we talk over each other,
Mate, turn down the heat. Turn down the heat at the Posey Parker rally, I think, is what Chloe needs to realise. You know, what amazes me in this whole exchange is that there is a panel of women and one dude. And who is sticking up for women's rights and safety and protection? It's the man. The women are silent. It's incredible to watch, not even a nod of approval from the women. How dare that man speak up for the rights of women? Ironically, when a woman does finally speak up, acts Brooke Van Velden rather timidly, and says, well, we should be able to agree to disagree, she is dumped upon by a raging Chloe. Have a watch.
Genuinely agree to disagree. I think it's important that people, you know...
I'm not going to deny people's existence, I'm sorry.
All right,
that's the bottom line.
Deny anyone's existence. We don't deny anyone's existence, and we're actually very empathetic towards people that are going
I'd like
through it.
Yeah, you know, if you disagree with anyone about anything, it's to deny their existence, according to the radical left. This is how they shut down debate. Oh, except if you want to disagree with Bible-believing Christians, then you can disagree. That's okay. Now, the question then goes to the Maori Party representative, who gives us all a schooling of what critical race theory looks and sounds like. It's a textbook answer from a critical theory textbook.
I am so sorry to our takatapui whānau that have to be used as a political football for gaining voters, for gaining votes. That is absolutely, Party. You do not interject into my kōrero. You had your time, you don't interject into my kōrero.
But you're not saying the truth.
I will speak my truth, you speak your truth. Don't you come into my kōrero. Don't you come.
All right, we'd like to hear from Hannah, and if we're talking over each other, I'm going to start slamming the buzzer.
Sure.
It's parties like ACT and New Zealand First who have formed this absolute disgusting political fear on our young people who are brown, who are takatapui, who are Indigenous, who are in fear that because they are Pacific, that they will get bombed from Kaifolks. There's just all this different kōrero that's going around, and you have to keep these people accountable that actually colonialism brought in this idea of putting us into boxes, whether we are male or female. In a Maori context, you are actually ira wahine, ira tāne, which is, but at the end of the day, you are ira tangata, you are a human, and you should be treated just like a human should be treated on a marae and our kura, which is the upright respects of human rights.
Aren't women treated different to men on the marae? Just asking. So what does the National Party think? Well, apparently they've never heard about it being an issue, which either means they don't talk to any parents because plenty of parents are talking about it. You just have to see the public meetings happening around the country at the moment to see that. Or they just don't want to acknowledge the issue, which is a problem because the National MP, Erica Stanford, shown in this panel, could be our next Minister of Education. And of course, it's not just about toilets, as the media lazily label it. It's about camp cabins, confusion, castration, cross-sex hormones, pronouns, puberty blockers, and worst of all, secrecy around parents. So what did the national representative say?
National, I'm going to go to you. Your leader, Christopher Luxon, said that this bathrooms policy is on another planet and that voters care about the cost of living, not bathrooms. But is that just you guys avoiding the issue either way?
No, I just don't think that it is. I go into schools every day of the week because it's my portfolio. And I ask them this question: how do you deal with it? Especially in a primary school where you've got a child who is gender diverse. And the schools say, well, we just deal with it. We have either use a staff bathroom or we assign them a bathroom, and it's not a problem.
Schools are a good model for this.
It's really not a problem. And so I just think that it's just something that's a distraction from the really big issues around the economy and cost of living and our enormous debt and how we're going to deal with it. Those are the things that people, as you said, overwhelmingly said tonight about what they wanted to hear about, because those are the issues of the day. It's no one in any school I've been to in the whole country has said we've got an issue with bathrooms. Not a single one.
And finally, to the Labour MP, who was Arena Williams. Now, you'll recognise that name because we've featured her in a previous McBLOG. She was asked the simple question of whether a woman could have a penis, and she responded yes. So anyway, you'll see from her response that she quickly applauds her Labour Party for bringing in the conversion therapy law, which criminalises parents who don't affirm their child to go down the transgender path, might not affirm their child into transgenderism as a conversion therapy law does. And also you'll hear her talk about all the funding that they've given the radical group Inside Out, which is putting this indoctrination into schools and which parents are concerned about. Have a listen.
Labour has removed things like the harmful
conversion practices that were having an effect on young people's mental health. And we've also done the work to provide a primary mental health care service that didn't exist before. 1 million free primary mental health care sessions, as well as funding for something like Inside Out, $4.6 million to make sure that this program was available in from 200 schools to 300 schools. It's that kind of investment where we target primary healthcare needs, continue to provide support.
Yeah, okay, that's concerning. Just finally, I had to show this clip, this question to the New Zealand First rep. Now, imagine if they had asked this question about President Biden. Imagine how the left would have raged and cancelled the questioner. But when it's Winston who's the target, it's all good.
Lee Donoghue, your party's leader entered national politics in the 1975 general election. That's 48 years or 16 elections ago. How can young New Zealanders think that New Zealand First will represent them when it's led by someone so far from them in age?
Oh, that's discrimination right there. Ageism, hey?
Yeah, shocking, shocking. Look, what did we learn from this debate? Well, we learned that the current batch of women MPs don't seem willing or able to speak up for women and girls. We learned that they're either captured by gender ideology or they're too scared or weak to speak up. We learnt that the possible next Minister of Education is not listening to parents on the significant concerns around the sex and transgender agenda in schools, including primary schools aimed at very young children. And we learnt that it took a man to defend women in this public debate, while the woman either stood silent or attacked the man, as Chloe did. No wonder our society is groaning at the moment. The confusion is palpable. As we say in Value Your Vote, if a candidate for Parliament can't define what is a woman, why would you trust them with being in a position of influence in Parliament? Choose wisely. Our country desperately needs leaders and political parties who can define truth.